appreciate you coming in.
Thank you for the invite.
Now, you're here to talk about an event that's taking place on Sunday, but let's just first talk about, well, let's just go back, shall we, to the beginning. JK Rowling, she basically caused an awful lot of fuss in social media for a tweet which I thought was remarkably reasonable. She wrote on the 19th of December 2019, "Dress however you please, call yourself whatever you like, sleep with any consenting adult who'll have you, live your best life in peace and security, but force women out of their jobs for stating that sex is real. Hashtag I stand with Maya, and this is not a drill." She was talking about Maya Forstater, who was forced out of her job for tweeting some really very reasonable things about, well, men can't become women, and women exist separately from outside of men's imagination, shall we say. This set off a tsunami of hysteria.
Yes.
And you've been very much at the sharp end of this hysteria as well. Tell us about that.
Oh, well, you know, the thing about JK Rowling is she's very different to my approach in that when I first started getting into this, I noticed that women were being bullied, smeared, losing work, simply for standing up for their human rights.
And not saying anything remotely transphobic.
Nothing, never
as
saying,
there wasn't in that tweet.
No one can tell you what JK Rowling has said wrong. This is essentially village gossip that has reached a global level, and she is the local witch. And the real reason why she is because you know, as you know, she's uncancelable. Yeah. She's only not a billionaire because she's given away all her money, you know, or not all of it, but she's no longer a billionaire. She's still a billionaire, or she's just below a billionaire, I think. But no one can tell you what she did wrong because, like, she wrote an essay about the importance of single sex spaces for victims of rape and in shelters and so on, and again, you can't, like, I saw people saying, don't read it. I literally saw that. Yeah. Don't read it. And it's because...
This vile transphobic essay.
Exactly. And it's because there is nothing in it that a normal, reasonable human being could object to. But because trans rights activists are insane, they went after her. And the thing is, as I say, she's not cancelable, but the real reason they go after JK Rowling is as a warning to the others.
And it works. And you say trans activists. Again, not in any way referring to trans people.
No, it's a very different thing.
Because trans activists don't represent trans people. They are a very, very small minority. Many are not actually trans themselves. But this has been ongoing, and JK Rowling has been forced to defend herself again and again. We had HBO recently doing the anniversary of the Harry Potter films, having all of the cast whose careers she made, those young people. She wasn't invited. It was like she never happened, having created this.
None of those actors have shown any ability to act beyond the level that got them into the business. Yeah. And still they've decided to turn around and call their old boss a bigot because she stands up for rape victims.
And only 2 days ago, JK Rowling tweeted, and I love that she's doubling down on this, and I think she's a fantastic hero on this. "War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength." Of course, we're quoting Orwell here. "The penist individual who raped you is a woman." This after the Scottish police insist, and I know this has been happening in England as well, insisting on logging rapists who self-identify as trans women as women who have raped, even though the act is only perpetrated by a man in these circumstances.
Historians are going to look back at this time and wonder why there were suddenly so many female rapists and paedophiles.
Yeah, out of the blue.
Out of the blue over the last few years.
This has all come about. I mean, it's come about very, very quickly. We've seen social change about how people view, for instance, gay people, or civil rights movements in the States, or feminism across the world. These movements often take years. The trans activist movement sort of exploded out of nowhere and has absolutely turned a lot of the world on its head. People think it's something silly that's happening on campuses over there. It's not. People are losing their jobs. Ordinary people, doing ordinary jobs, accountants, like Maya Forstater, losing their jobs because we've seen academics hounded out, Kathleen Stock hounded out of Sussex University, her own union not standing up for her. We know any actor, any writer, any artist, anyone like you, if you speak up on this, you are immediately considered persona non grata. You were taken off Twitter, weren't you, for your tweets? Again, anything transphobic in them?
Well, my last tweet was "men aren't women." That's what I said.
You disgusting man. How dare you?
But like they were gunning for me for a while because the thing I was trying to do was I was trying to amplify the women who were speaking about it, and I was trying to bring attention to the fact that they were being banned in their dozens.
Yeah.
You know, like,
I'm amazed I've not been.
yeah, well, you know, there's certain
I've had
things.
lots of reports and complaints. But...
Yeah, well, they may well get you because, like, Megan Murphy, a Canadian feminist, was said the words "that's him," and Twitter banned her. And this was about a guy who was going by a male and female name at the time, and a guy who turned out to be really bad news.
But again, it's entirely reasonable for people to request that people use people's preferred pronouns.
Yes.
However, it is not entirely reasonable for people to demand and require it, and for people to be cancelled for not doing it. You were stepping up, and it's very noticeable that it is women who get the brunt of this. It is women on the left who get the brunt of this abuse. I have to say, when they come for me, I'm just like, carry on.
Yeah.
You know, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough. I'm very happy to stand up for my views. I know that I have not got any negative feelings, let alone hatred in my heart for anybody who is trans. Quite the contrary. But I also feel the need to stand up for women's rights, and that's where we get into the Scottish police situation with Maya Forstater, and people's attempting to cancel JK Rowling. And this is the issue, isn't it? It's that this is happening on a very wide scale now, and unless people stand up and say, no, this has to stop,
yes,
it's going to carry on. So this is why you've got what's called the GC Coming Out Day. Yeah. It's this Sunday. GC stands for gender critical. Can you first explain what that means? All
it means is that you do not believe that men should have access to women's shelters, to women's rape crisis centres, to women's sports. They shouldn't be put down as female when they've committed a male crime like rape. All it means is that you believe in the reality of sex, that there are two sexes, and that dysphoria exists, but it doesn't mean that we have to actually pretend that reality isn't real, you know?
And that's, again, this is about trans people being able to live however they choose to live, and their identity, change their names, have equal rights, certainly absolutely being protected from discrimination or abuse or anything else like that. I think we would all agree on that. I think, and I think the vast majority of people in this country would agree on that. But that doesn't mean us changing our language completely and wiping out, as you say, the biological reality that there are fundamental physical differences between men and women.
And I don't think that we need any more to even make that qualification at the start of the sentence. Everyone knows we're not transphobic. You know, Debbie Hayton, you may have had on. Debbie Hayton is a trans woman, totally agrees with us. So do many others on Twitter. Lots of detransitioners agree with us. People who really know about this subject agree with us. Yes. You know, so we don't really have to say it anymore.
But also the use of the word trans tells you that someone has transitioned from one to the other.
Well, and also the problem with the word trans as a category is it doesn't really. There's no stable definition of it. Even the Stonewall website says trans may refer to people who feel like.
So that could be someone who's had full surgery. It could refer to someone who's just had some medication, or it could refer to someone who literally, you could right now say, I'm a trans woman.
Yes.
And I have to accept that you're a trans woman.
I went onto a lesbian dating app as myself to show that men were getting onto lesbian dating apps and coercing women into sex.
The argument there being pressurising a lot of young women who are just perhaps venturing bravely out of the first time. Maybe a lot of their family members, friends don't know they're gay, and basically being told by these trans women, i.e. biological men, that you're transphobic if you don't agree to sleep with a trans woman who is biologically a man. I mean, this stuff is crazy stuff.
Yes, and some of whom, like I published the pictures on my blog, some of whom, there's not even a touch of makeup. They're full beards and they're calling themselves lesbians. It's trolling women. It's homophobic.
Well, again, it's basically meaning that lesbianism doesn't exist anymore in that sense. But also, it's
and this is supported by Stonewall. It's extraordinary.
It's the abuse that JK Rowling gets when she speaks out, and again, she's never, as far as we're aware, and I've read all her tweets, seen her essays, no one has ever come up with a single episode where she has ever, in private or in public, uttered anything that could remotely be construed as transphobic, and yet she gets abused. I mean, trans activists threatening to rape her, to murder her, the most horrific, detailed sexual abuse that they want to perform on her. These are not people who like women.
No, that's the thing. If the trans activists kind of win, then this will be an unbearable world for women. And I think that, unfortunately, a lot of people don't really realise how how extreme their version of reality is, you know? I mean, you know, I agree with you completely about we really have to impress upon people that this is an emergency. Like, there are already men in women's prisons. There's a man. I'm friends with two Scottish rape victims who feel they cannot go to rape crisis services in Scotland because the man in charge, excuse me, the man in charge of rape crisis services in Scotland has said even bigots get raped, or bigots get raped too, was the quote.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, and basically also allowing someone who is a trans woman, i.e. a biological man, into those groups where they're talking, when that's going to set off a lot of fears. But again, exactly. I think a lot of people are waking up to this with things like changing rooms. Call me old-fashioned. My daughter goes into Topshop, or whatever store they go into these days. I would rather there wasn't a man in there with his penis while she was getting changed. I don't think that makes me a bigot.
People don't understand that, like, let's say you're a 16-year-old girl out on your own shopping, and you're followed around a shopping centre by a strange man. The toilets are a refuge for that girl. There's a you know, as long as the boundaries are clear, people are able to say, no, you can't go in there. But the boundaries are no longer clear.
That's the thing.
And we've even seen posters that say, if you see anyone in this toilet who looks like they don't belong here, don't say anything. That is not what you tell people.
That's certainly not what you tell little girls and little boys. Exactly. I mean, but also, I mean, sports. I did think that the Olympics might be a bit of a wake-up call with a trans female weightlifter from New Zealand.
Julia, 3 women have been beaten up in the ring. In MMA, 3 women have been beaten up by men.
By biological men.
By biological men on live television. And
I thought we didn't like that in our society.
I certainly didn't think we would turn it into entertainment. It really feels like last days of Rome sometimes.
It does. Know? It's a bit of Hunger Games, isn't it? So what do you want people to do on Sunday?
Well,
coming out day.
The thing about it is not as safe to come out for women as it is for men. Men are much safer when they come out. They don't get the death and rape threats.
When you say come out and simply say, you know, trans women can have a wonderful, happy life, have a great life, but you're not a woman, and you don't therefore get to enter in all women's
I don't even think you need to go that far. You simply need to stand up for certain basic things. You know, we have to protect the weakest in society. Those are women and children. You know, and we have to protect everyone in every strata of society. The thing about trans rights activism is it damages women at every strata of society. Women in prison, you know, women in shelters, all the way up to people losing their places on all-female shortlists. You know, it is an attack, an all-out attack on women. So all we're saying is on Sunday, just tweet, you know, I stand with JK Rowling, or GC Coming Out Day, or just
there is safety in numbers.
Safety in numbers. The idea is that if we all step forward, it's a little bit harder for the snipers to get us. You know,
Graham Linehan, you've been an absolute hero on this. Now, you and I will disagree on probably virtually everything else, but it's wonderful we can come together on these issues. You've been very, very brave on this, and I really appreciate that you are helping to stand up for women's rights and girls' rights and safety as well. Graham Linehan, thank you very much indeed.